Well, Gonky, moving on to the next thing that I would like to talk about to you tonight.
It's
So,
nice looking airplane, dude.
It really is. And so we took a little bit of hate when you bullied
Dude,
the French for
I
how
don't
that
believe
man the French and their Rafale. Remember, we did that video. You got us canceled. That's actually the video that got us canceled. So please don't say those words again.
Is it the one where he fought the Raptor?
Yes, and the Raptor kind of graped around, and everybody's like, "Oh, it
Two
means
tanks?
the Raptor suck." Yeah, he was pulling like 3 Gs, and the Rafale's like 9.5 Gs, and his G strain was a little high pitched, a little bit on the high pitch side. I thought it was a little bit.
Who's bullying now?
It's just a debrief. It's a debrief. It doesn't mean. But listen, in this article at this time, now. I am not bullying the French because I am excited for them for their first French Rafale F4.1. It reached IOC, an initial operational capability. And that's an important milestone. We had the Air Force engineer, Rick Abel, on the channel, and we talked about kind of the milestones, and it's kind of universal, right? They start out, in the initial test, then they go to operational test, then it's IOC, and then it's fully mission capable. Or FOC, I think is what they're calling it here. But so the article says it's upgraded to a 4.1 standard, which is actually, they're just modernizing. You're getting into that closer to that Gen 4.5, where you're in this sensor network. There's a data link. They've got, I think it talks about it here. Yeah. So it's new satellite intra-patrol links, communication server, software, radio, a new helmet-mounted sight, a 1-ton precision-guided bomb, the Hammer, which isn't that a cool name, improvements to the air-to-air and air-to-ground targeting systems, enhancements to the self-protection system, integration of the Talios targeting long-range identification optronic system targeting pod. And that's important, too, because it's always a good thing, tactically speaking, when you can reach out and see something or target something with just optics, with an IR, an ERST, something like that. So really cool capabilities, a substantial improvement for the backbone of the French Air Force. And they're going to prepare and operate alongside France, Germany, and Spain. They'll be equipped for a high intensity conflict, and one of the priorities of their new planning law from 2024. But that's a good looking airplane. And going back to what we were just talking about, it takes nothing away when we talk about the Raptor thing. It's a badass machine. High AOA, pulls 9 Gs, has a great turn rate, both instantaneous and sustained. It's a performing aircraft. And when you upgrade the sensors, more modern, get the color displays, get the moving maps, get the data link, get the targeting systems, now you've just made a more capable ally in future conflicts, which is important in Europe because, again, we've got a hot spot in Ukraine. Everybody's worried about it spilling out. The stronger the allies are, the better off everyone is. And upgrading it is important to keep up with new tech.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of countries developing, their own weapons. I mean, the French built the Rafale because they were tired of messing around with the Typhoon. And they built a really good airplane, and it's good to see them continue to advance it. And I'm sure, the sales to India and other countries have helped because this ain't cheap, right? I mean, in France.
That's what I was going to ask you about, actually, didn't we do an article about them selling it to India because India said no to the Super Hornet?
Yeah, the Indian chose it, which the Indian Navy chose the Rafale over the Super Hornet, but the Indian Air Force had already been flying the Rafale. So there's a carrier and non-carrier mission that it can do. It's one airplane I've always wanted to fly. So my buddy Kunte in Malaysia, he flew it, and he's like, "Oh man, it's like a Ferrari."
I believe it.
I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, "Oh man, it's just so fast."
It's a good looking airplane. Yeah. It performs really well. And my question then is, so is it like the midlife upgrade, right? We took older F-16s and we upgraded them, especially the export versions. We upgraded them to kind of a Block 50, Block 52 standard. The Super Hornet, you can change the OFP and upgrade them. Is it something like this, or is this like the Super Hornet where it's a whole new airplane, and you can't retrofit to the older models.
No, it's I'm 99% sure it's not a whole new airplane. The Super Hornet is a from the intakes back basically is a completely different airframe. The Rafale is they've upgraded, the innards, which I mean in modern fighter planes, that's what.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
and we did that.
of
And you did that. You see that with the F-16.
Yeah.
You know, the some of the external hardware is different between, block 40, block 50, block 30. But then, the block 40, they call it MMC jets. The block 40s and 50s all share that same software. The block 30s were the SCU. So they had their own software and they upgraded them separately. So if that's the case, then that means these newer jets that are coming out, the Indian versions and export versions and stuff like that, will be able to be upgraded as well as time goes on, and they're fully confident with it. So, I mean, good for them.
Yeah, we actually the Charles de Gaulle, I mentioned it a while back, but the Charles de Gaulle came out and we did some exercises with them, and the Rafale was there, and I fought them BVR, but
beyond
I didn't
visual
get
range.
Yeah, sorry. And then I didn't get to dogfight with any, but a bunch of the guys did get to do BFM with the Rafale, and it's very much like and I flew older a lot back then. Even they were older, Lot 10 Charlie regular Hornets, legendary legacy Hornets, and they were very comparable. So, and I honestly, I don't know like what variant of the Rafale the French Navy was flying back then, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of kept on step with like Super Hornet as far as like a lot of the radar and countermeasure, like that kind of stuff. So,
well, I'd also be interested to see how it changes the performance, because they didn't talk about any engine upgrades, right? And that happens a lot of times. Like Block 40 was a victim of this. Block 50. As you start getting more advanced tech, you add weight, and so
and it matters.
The within visual range gets worse.
Yeah.
For just basic dogfighting, and by basic dogfighting, I mean guns, which rarely happens. Now you've got a helmet, you don't need it. You've got a good missile, you've got a helmet, okay. But performance wise, it loses just a little bit, but gains. I would much rather, if I'm the Rafale pilot, I'm like, give me the toys, because that's what's gonna be better in war, because it's a different landscape. You're not going to go to that merge with just the gun, hopefully.
Well, the question is always, when people ask me which version of Super Hornet or which version of the Hornet is your favorite, I'm like, what are we doing? Are we going to war, or are we going to play?
Yeah. Well, and so I think other people might talk about, because it's Gen 4.5, when they're talking about electronic countermeasures too, the French are very good at electronic attack, jamming, all that stuff. So those, I think they're going to get upgrades in that as well. I think that's probably, part of it is all of their sensor fusion and all that, self-protection capability that maybe negates the need for a stealthier aircraft and keeps them survivable in a conflict.
Yeah. And I don't know what the French doctrine is. I mean, are they more defensive, or are they off? You know what I'm saying? So I mean, they have an aircraft carrier, so they do have power projection, but
and it said patrols, airborne patrols and stuff like that, but I mean, they've been out. I mean, they've been out in conflicts. They've been fighting in the Middle East. They've done plenty of stuff.
That's what they were doing when we were working with them. They were out there doing OEF. I don't know, OEF or OIF, one of them, but I'm superficial, man. It's a good looking airplane. I'd love to fly it.
Well, I'd love to see a Gripen next to it. The new Gripen E. I would love, because they look, they look very similar.
I'd fly the Gripen too. Gripen people are listening.
Hey, listen, don't give up on us. You can give up on Gonki. Don't give up on Mover. Janitor's back says, and the Rafale can land on the U.S. carriers.
That's true. I saw it with my own eyes.
What is what does that? What's the delineation? Like what determines whether you can land on a U.S. carrier or not?
That's a great question, man. I like from a equipment standpoint, I would think you just need a hook and some sort of light device on the front so the LSOs can confirm that you are flying the appropriate angle of attack slash speed to come aboard. Uh, though I don't remember, they may have done it since then, but pretty sure they were doing all touch and goes. And our guys, I didn't get to go over there and do it, but our guys were doing touch and goes as well. I don't think anybody was
On
hooked
their ship?
down. Yeah.
Wow. Because
And
they have
they
the short
do
ships, right? They just
yeah.
yeah.
And what was we gosh, I'm really digging because that was a long time ago. But what I thought was pretty amazing about them was like when we if anybody knows in the comments, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But and Mover, you remember because you talked about this sim that was kind of hard for for CQ, but we would calculate our push time,
Yeah.
like for the night stuff, Cat 3, whatever. So we would
Mhm.
calculate our push time, which when flown correctly would dictate, you know, the interval at trap. The French calculate their like over the ramp time, which to me is like, how the hell do you do that? We had a French we had a couple French pilots come over and hang out in our ready room, and we sent a couple guys over. They have bars on their ships, just so you know. I think
Nice.
yeah, they're doing it better than we are. I think there's 3 bars on the ship. I don't drink, so I was like, all right, one of you guys go live it up. And they brought a couple French pilots over, and we're just learning about one another. And there were some differences with procedures, but at the end of the day, you're still landing a jet on a ship. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
yeah.
Cool.